Hey everyone, thanks for watching the CB vlog here on YouTube. You know what to do. If you like the show and if you want to help us out, go hit subscribe just down below. Leave us a little comment in there. Let's start talking. It really helps us out a bunch. If you want to help out even more though, patreon.com/commandersbrew. Place to go. Get in on our Discord. Help us make the decks. Help us actually create the show yourself with your donation directly. It would be great. You can set levels. You can do all kinds of stuff. It's very, very flexible. So check out patreon.com/commandersbrew. But without further ado, we are going to get into today's topic, which is our top 10 favorite decks of the year.
Yeah.
This is great.
This is great. We're going to talk about our top 10 favorite, 5 apiece. I'm going to talk about my 5 favorite decks that we brewed up on our show, and he's going to talk about his top 5 we brewed on this show. And from the last year, from the calendar year of 2019.
That is correct. This was a good year when it comes to brewing.
Yeah, it's a good year for brewing.
It's a good year for brews, right? I feel like
it
was a solid year. We got a lot of great Commander product, and as a result, we got a lot of flexibility and a lot of fun cards to brew with. And, it's the end of the year. It's the time for end-of-year lists. 'Tis the season, you might say. So why don't we jump into it right now?
Okay, I'll go first. One of my favorite decks this year, I still love it. I still play it IRL from time to time. Is the Izzet Super Friends deck. This was episode 190. This was centered around Saheeli the Gifted, and it's meant to just be a bunch of red and blue planeswalkers, because I didn't feel that there was ever a Super Friends deck that had red in it that adequately used all these red planeswalkers. Red, blue, and if I recall correctly, War of the Spark had just come out as well, so we were primed. There was tons of great new red and blue commanders to grab from, but I don't think M20 was out yet, so we didn't see all of those Chandras. So we don't have the triple Chandra going in that. Since then, I've made a couple upgrades. I think Will and Rowan Kenrith are perfect. I would love to try out the new the pair of them from Eldraine. Yeah. That's the cool part about looking back on decks, is thinking what would you add to it from the new cards that came out?
You just kind of gave me a good idea for a deck, I think.
Okay.
A Super Friends deck where you only use planeswalkers from the planeswalker decks.
Whoa.
Bit of a restriction there.
Okay.
See if you can make that work. I mean, recently they haven't been that good. They started out way better than they are now, but that's kind of the fun of brewing, trying to make them work. This is definitely a fun deck, and I just like the idea of picking a color pair or even a trio and going Super Friends into that, because everyone always does 5 color Super Friends.
Or attracts a Super Friends.
Of course, yes, yeah. Which is basically the same thing. So yeah, picking a pair and going for it is that's awesome. Picking a pair. One of my favorites from this year was really a classic archetype that you see a lot as well, but with our own Commander's Brew spin. It was the clone deck, clone, copy, and borrow.
Oh yes.
Basically what this was I wanted to take this classic archetype and make it into something that I'd be a version that I would want to play. So these decks, a lot of time they steal, right? They take people's stuff as well. It's just a classic thing that these decks do. And I always found that people hate getting their stuff stolen.
People hate it.
To an unreasonable degree, right? Because it's just, if you treat it kind of just as it's a 2-for-1. So people don't like getting 2-for-1, right? So if in this deck we had it, there's no steal effects. So people aren't as offended when you start, creating the stuff that they're doing. And you can see this in, which episode of Battle of Brews is this in? It's in
our very recent one.
14,
16, 15.
we should have been on this.
Well, we know what episode of the podcast it comes from, 214.
Yes, exactly.
So watch for it. I mean, it's helmed by Thada Adel. Look for the Battle of the Brews with Thada Adel in it.
Correct. So yeah, there's no direct stealing. There's taking from the library, which I called borrowing. Because the player didn't invest any mana into it. It's not like you're taking their turn away from them. Anyways, turned out to be a lot of fun. Took a little bit of inspiration also from Commander Cookout with some like Howling Mine type effects, and like getting cards in your opponent's hand so that you can actually have stuff to clone and borrow. So we had a little bit of that flavor in there as well. So shout outs to our boys CCO. F you guys always, forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a lot of fun deck, and I really like, if your meta doesn't have one of these, like, be the person that brings it, because it's very, very fun.
Yeah, it's fun. That Battle of the Brews was very fun too. It really did some interesting things. I won't spoil anything if you haven't watched it.
Yeah, no, it's a good one.
I'm gonna feature from episode 195, Roalesk Apex Hybrid. Roalesk came out in War of the Spark. Roalesk was the Simic commander that puts +1/+1 counters on creatures, but when it dies, you proliferate twice. And when we initially looked at this card, we're like, well, commanders never really die because you don't let them go to the graveyard. They go right to the command zone, so you don't get die triggers. So you're missing a whole half of the card. However, I brewed around it by just similar to your clone, copy, borrow. I'm going to clone and copy Roalesk himself, and the copy will be the one who goes to the graveyard. So I'll get all those proliferate triggers. We played a game. There's another deck I run in real life. That's why they're my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
We played this at Alistair's house not too long ago. I played this deck and I managed to get a Rite of Replication kicked on my Roalesk.
Wow.
And I don't know if I did the math before, but you get 5 copies that each put a +1/+1 counter, and then the 5 copies die because of the legend rule, and then you get 10 proliferates. So that's 20 +1/+1 counter.
They put 2.
Each puts 2. That's what I'm saying. So each one, so the first 5 put 10 counters on the original Roalesk, and then you proliferate that 10 times. You've put 20 counters on Roalesk with that one play.
Wow.
And that's a one-hit commander kill.
Yeah, and he's got Flying and Trample. I love this.
Trample.
I love this because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the inspiration for this one was this card wasn't good. Like when in our set review of War of the Spark, we were like, yeah, well, I mean, it's not I mean, like, whatever. Like, he puts counters on, he proliferates. Proliferate's cool, but he has to die. Like, it's your commander, but whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, whatever, huh?
Yes.
Which always, I mean, that is, I mean, I almost feel like that's our thing. Give us a card that just seems whatever, whether it's Roalesk Apex Hybrid or, Epic Experiment, things like that. And just be like, oh, actually, this creates a super fun deck because people just don't see those angles right off the top, including us. We didn't even see this angle until you started actually brewing with it.
And what a great lesson to just try to brew. Like don't write off cards as bad until you've tried them.
Yeah, absolutely. My next one was Liliana Tribal. This one was exactly what it is. It's just running every Liliana card, I think, except for Of the Veil, which is like $100. That might have been the only Liliana card that was missing, including Liliana art, including Liliana mentions, and obviously pretty zombie centric. But this deck actually, and it makes sense, and it's a credit to both like R&D and like the design team, as well as the playtest, or not playtest, but you know what I mean, the R&D and the design team, because all of Liliana's stuff, all the stuff that cares about Liliana, it synergizes so well together. Of course it does, right? She's got a theme to her a bit, so it makes sense. And we were coming off of, again, War of the Spark here. This is episode 193. And Liliana playing a major part in that, and Liliana getting a new card and all this type of stuff. So like making a deck that was based around one Planeswalker like this, it was surprisingly good and surprisingly fun. You couldn't call it Super Friends because it's all the same person, but there was something like 10 to 12 Planeswalkers in there, I'm pretty sure.
You know what?
Great.
If you can't be a super friend to yourself, you need to take a look at things.
You can't be a super friend to others.
Yeah.
How are you going to be a super friend to others?
If you can't be a super friend to yourself, how can you be a super friend to others?
Can I get an amen up in here? Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, this. Yeah, like I said, like it was surprisingly fun. I remember just thinking of it I was like, oh yeah, sure. And then being like, this deck's fun. This is one I haven't yet put together in real life, but it's always one that's like right there. And I'm like, should I do it? Should I make the order for all the Lilianas? Like, and it's becoming closer and closer to just like, yes, okay.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to highlight from episode 208, Atla Palani Pure Eggs. Eggs Tribal. This was the one where when we were talking about Atla Palani in the set review of C19, this is one of those things where the deck just hits you with a flash of inspiration. I was like, so the whole deck is a combo deck, and actually I want to highlight this one too because I don't think I've ever made like a straight combo deck like this before, where it means to put a couple pieces in play and then do something infinitely. I've brewed tons of decks where that was possible, where that was in there, but that wasn't kind of what we were going for. This is all in. Like, we need, like, this is how the deck wins.
Yeah, we don't do a ton of combo decks on the show, especially ones that are just going to win you the game when you get them.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one, this did that.
And so it's all different eggs and different changelings so that they all count as eggs. So as soon as you loop one creature, you loop all your creatures. The one dies and the next one comes up and it's also an egg. And the only non-eggs are Protein Hulk, which is actually like a couple of eggs at once. Like, it just becomes eggs when it dies. And
not just the weird eggs on its body. Like, I mean, I guess that's what it is. But yeah, it turns into other eggs.
It turns into actual eggs or changelings, and then things like creatures that will help shuffle your graveyard back into your library, so the loop can sustain itself infinitely.
It's a tough deck to handle. We saw this on a Battle of the Brews as well, and again, no spoilers, but like, this deck it happened. I won't tell you what the end result was, but it's tough to deal with. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Like, because most of it all happens at instant speed, right?
We haven't numbered all of our Battle of the Brews decks, but the one there's been 2 Atla Palani appearances so far. One that I was piloting and one that Andy was piloting.
That's right. Mine was more of a traditional, like, big creature thing, where Sean's was.
Although, if I'm not mistaken, is that one out yet? No, that one's not out yet, actually. So okay. But it might be by the time you listen to this. Time is weird when you're recording, everybody.
Exactly.
Faithful listeners.
Moral of the story, check out Battle of the Brews for these decks in action.
Yeah.
Mine, I'm gonna pick I'm gonna pick a Sean deck here. I'm gonna pick the episode from episode 188. It's American Gladiators, and that was helmed by Bruce Tarl, right?
Yeah, and Ishai,
right?
Ojutai Dragon Speaker,
right. This deck, not only just fun for the Jeskai colors being these like superheroes, because it's kind of like half legendary tribal.
It's all legendaries,
right? It's
and combat.
Right, exactly. So it's like legendary tribal mixed with like messing with combat. It is super fun to see it played, except for when Sean decides that you are the contestant. And his gladiators must, they got to try and beat you. They got to beat you at the game. And that happened to be, again, episode Battle of Brews. You can check it out. It's one of the earlier ones. Check it out. It's, the Bruce Tarl Ishai one. But without talking just about Battle of Brews, the deck itself is just like, just look at this deck list. It's a ton of fun creatures, fun effects. It's resilient. It's like, the fact that it's combat based means that, like, I don't know. I always find combat-based decks to be way more fun than like a person goldfishing with an Atla Palani egg deck. No shade. I'm just kidding. No, but for real, like combat decks, I always find to be more fun. There's more interaction that way, right? And this deck is, again, even when you're on the receiving end of it, you kind of want to see what they're gonna do, what he's gonna do to you. And like the real American Gladiators, he's got a lot of like tricks up his sleeve for this one.
Yeah.
And remember to go watch that Malibu clip on.
Oh my god!
On the
just watch episode 188 of our show for that. Like we put the clip in. It's so funny.
Sweet.
I want to go to a Jeskai deck as well. I'm going to feature the Kikar deck from episode 205. This So Kikar, you get little spirits every time you cast a non-creature spell, and you get to sack those spirits for red mana. So this is not an infinite combo based deck. This is just meant on like, if we're going to be able to cast a bunch of extra spells. So I've got a lot of cards in there that let you cast extra spells to get extra spirits, and those extra spirits help you cast those spells that let you cast extra spells. And one of my favorite interactions from it, I still think about this, is Aetherworks Marvel, because it's the
Yes.
artifact from Kaladesh that lets you, whenever a permanent leaves, you get energy. Well, guess what? When a spirit leaves for mana, you're getting energy, and you're spinning that thing to cast more spells, which makes more spirits. This deck is so fun.
It's fun because like that is a pretty parasitic mechanic, energy. Like in that it needs other cards that care about energy. So just putting one in usually doesn't really work, right? But I yeah, remember that the way that this deck works, it's perfect. There's that energy card. I think there's a couple other ones, right? But like it's not like you built. This is not an energy deck. That's just one of the cool interactions that works well with Kikar.
Yeah, I think the other energy card I threw in there was Gonti's Ether Heart, just to nab an extra turn somewhere.
Yeah, I use that in a deck not as well, which is funny because like again, not a. I don't think that's a super popular commander card. Okay,
Great.
for me,
That means it's cheap.
I was very stoked in episode 204 to build around the new commander from M20 as well, which was Yarok the Desecrated. This is the guy that doubles the triggered abilities, right? So like this is I believe we called this a disgusting value engine. Is that what it was?
So this cemented our theory that Sultai's theme is disgusting value.
Yeah, and it's true. Yarok, it's just like endless triggers. So there's so much you can do with this. We were talking about graveyards and things like that. Obviously, these are the colors for it. But and speaking of graveyards, I was like, well, let's try a different spin on this, and we went with a self-mill deck that tried to win with Lab Maniac or the new Jace from War of the Spark. And it's funny because like when you build that type of deck, usually you're just all in on the mill theme, and we're all in on the milling, and that's our win condition. But really, and I kind of took this lesson from Limited Resources and LSV, talking about people are kind of overly worried about win conditions, and while that is something to think about, and you got to have that plan. Like there's other ways to do it, right? And Yarok, in this case, in this deck, because it's a disgusting value engine, you don't always win with self-mill, oddly enough. It's definitely one of the things you're trying to do, but because it's so good with the value and stuff like that, and there's a little bit of recursion in there and all that kind of stuff, sometimes you're just getting enough value on the way that you're going to win. So it was a fun exercise in deck building for me, because as I was building this self-mill theme, I was seeing that like, oh, actually we can just win with our creatures and, you know, some of these like combination of cards that we have, not just the self-mill theme, even though that's what you're aiming for. So that was a lot of fun. And I mean, this commander is no doubtedly super powerful.
Super powerful. Yeah, I've seen it in action. It's powerful.
Yeah, it's powerful. It's good. It's fun. And it's kind of like not the traditional, like, or not the like obvious way to build Yarok, which is of course fun.
Yeah, we rarely take the obvious way.
Yeah. 204.
I'm going to round out my top 5 with one of Andy's decks. It's another Jeskai deck. This was your Elsha of the Infinite Tokens. I forgot to write down what episode this was from. I'll look it up. Can you look it up while I praise your deck?
Yeah. Yes, no problem.
It was... I already love Jeskai. We know this. This is no surprise. But Elsha, being able to cast things at instant speed off the top of your deck, if it's a non-creature, and there's so many ways to get instants and sorceries out there. There's so many ways to get tokens through instants and sorceries using them. It's just like it's one of the most fun takes on a token deck I've ever seen.
It's episode 211.
211.
And you know, there's, you know, when you've done 200 and some odd episodes, 211 at this point, you're gonna sort of repeat themes a little bit, and it's cool to see the new commanders and how they deal with them. So like this is actually pretty similar to similar because there's some similar themes, but overall it's a different aim, a different deck. But the keycard one you just mentioned, like this deck has keycard in it, and it uses some similar moves. There's also, you made Jeskai Token Squall, which is an old episode,
Right.
featuring
Shu Yun.
Shu Yun as the commander, and that has some similar themes. So like obviously you're going to run into that when you're making 200 and some odd episodes. But the spin that Elsha puts on it is a really fun one, in that you're loading it with instants and sorceries off the top of the library, and you're manipulating the top. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And finally, and maybe blame a bit of recency bias here, but one of my favorites from this year was the 200 episode 222, which is a pretty recent one. Casualties of a 1,000-Year Storm.
Yeah.
This deck is pretty wild. We're stretching the color pie possibilities here, in that we wanted to build like a deck that cares about 1,000-Year Storm and tries to storm with it, but also tries to storm the Golgari spell Casualties of War, which
It's amazing.
is double black, double green. So that means we had to be 4 colors, which means we were using what's his face, Yidris, as our commander. So we were also like cascading and like kind of storming, but like it wasn't a storm deck. We just had 1,000-Year Storm in there to try and help with it. Anyways, it's absolutely wild. It's kind of the same thing as Yarok, right? We have this aim, we have this thing we want to do, but along the way, actually, if you include the right cards, like you can build enough value on the way there that you can also win that way. So that's something I ended up also applying that strategy there. It's a good deck building strategy. I'd suggest you try it out. It's fun to play, and I'm definitely putting this one in together in real life, and you'll see this one on an upcoming episode of Battle of Brews.
I can't wait, Andy. This deck, this was such a, like, when you presented the idea for this deck, and you're like, I'm thinking about doing I want to copy Casualties of War 1,000-Year Storm. Like, it took me a second to realize, like, oh, none of those colors match. No. Like, it took me a couple seconds to realize, like, oh, you're talking 4 colors. But man, once you put Yidris in there, and like, that was incredible. Like it just came, like, we said it already, like, when you give yourself brewing restrictions, sometimes you get real creative, and sometimes awesome things happen. And I think that deck was awesome. The way you came about this was so great.
Major shout outs to our Discord and the gang in there, because they really helped pull this one together, because this just was a wild idea that then all the patrons in Discord really came together and like started suggesting ways that we could kind of weave these cards together, and it ended up being really the heart of the deck. So
oh man,
really
that's been great
community build. Yeah. And to close things out here for this one, like most of these decks, maybe it's like we only started doing this kind of like on the regular, like not super long ago. So like some of these decks we didn't experience it, but like when you get into it, we've had such a good time brewing these decks with our patrons in our Discord, and it's been a lot of fun. And again, we've been doing this for a long time, for like over 220 episodes at this point, and getting input from the people who like the show and watch and listen every week has been the best part of the year, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's fun. There's nothing quite like that feeling of like, hey, I got this cool idea for a deck, and your pal's like, have you thought of this card? You're like, I have not thought of that card. That's great. Like, that's one of my favorite feelings. And it's great hanging out on the Discord to get that happening. Thanks everybody.
Yep.
Thanks team.
Yeah, so there you go. Those were our favorite decks from this year, the 50-ish or so decks that we brewed. It's been a great year. Still a couple more to come up here, and
Yeah, we're telling you, the ones that are coming out after, we do not like.
Yeah,
they're not in our top 10.
They're not that good. Straight up. I kind of wanted to do the thing, like clickbaity articles where it's like the top 10, like the 10 best commander decks of the year, and 3 that were bad. It's like, first of all, I hate that so much.
Yeah.
And 3 that weren't. It's like, shut up. I don't need that. But I might have, like, it would have been hard to pick 3 that were bad, because, like, they're all our babies. They're not bad. So we didn't do it. Anyways,
Thanks for watching. If you love what we're doing, consider supporting the show by going to patreon.com/commandersbrew.
And if you want to get any of the cards from our deck list, go to our TCGplayer affiliate link below.
That helps us out too, and for a free way to help us out, consider sharing the show with some friends. Like and subscribe, add a comment or two.
See you later.
Bye.